Welcome back, viewers. Sometimes it happens that you will require to remove certain Linux kernels from your system. So how to remove them and why you require to remove the Linux kernel? Sometimes what happens is when the newer kernels are released, those kernels may not be compatible with your hardware and they won't have the drivers that are required to run perfectly on your system, or they won't have the certain patches that make them compatible to work on your system. So in that case we will have to remove that kernel because it is unnecessary. That kernel anyway won't work and you don't want that kernel to hog the hard disk space. So you can always remove that kernel from your system. In Arch Linux or in EndeavourOS, there is a way to remove the unwanted kernels. For that, you have to open the terminal. You have to issue the command "a" space -rs Linux headers. So Linux name is given to the main kernel. Okay, and Linux LTS or Linux -LTS is the name given to the LTS kernel, and the Linux -RT is the name given to the real-time kernel. So these are the nomenclature for naming the kernels in Arch Linux. So by giving the command Linux headers, it will remove the main kernels. So main kernel is the default kernel that is available in the Arch Linux or the EndeavourOS. So here you can see after issuing this command, it is checking for the dependencies. It will check for the base, can say base file system or the base files for the Linux kernels. The DKMS, that is the dynamic kernel modules. The NVIDIA installer will also optionally will require the Linux and Linux headers for it to perform. So the dependency check is going on, and the NVIDIA installer common will also optionally require the Linux headers. So the Arch base system, the DKMS, NVIDIA installer common. So these are all the dependencies on the kernel. The kernel is dependent on them and they are also dependent on the kernel. So this dependency checks goes on, and after the dependency check is fulfilled, the packages are offered for uninstallation. For example, here Linux and Linux header. So this is the version that I want to uninstall, and it will show the net change that will happen in the system. So 127.48 MB of space will be saved for the Linux kernel, and the Linux header removal will save around 123.57 MB. Total removed size will be around 251 MB. So do you want to remove these packages? So you have to say yes, and the initramfs, that is the update initramfs will work in the background. These kernels will be removed. The kernel corresponding kernel images will be also removed. The grub will be updated. The next time when we boot, this Linux kernel will disappear as an option in the grub screen. So that's it. And further, I had also installed the Snapper and the ButterFS file system for my laptop. So the ButterFS file system also got updated. The Snapper run automatically, and it took the snapshots of system. So suppose something happens, I can use those snapshots to go back and correct the error. So that's it, and this is how you have to do. So in generally, the Snapper won't work in your system if you are not install it, but I have installed the Snapper because I am using the ButterFS file system. So every time I install or remove any package from my system, the Snapper will take a snapshot of the system, so I can revoke any damaging changes to the system, and my laptop is working all the time. So with this, I will stop the video here. See you in the next video. Bye bye.